All right, it's 7 o'clock straight up. Let's go ahead and get started. So, with that being said, let's jump right into our crew mechanics and our communication. This first clip, this game should be familiar to you. It's one that we've had clips that we've used in other contexts. And what we're going to have here is a fourth down situation. Now, what I want to point out before we run this, I can't tell for sure because we're not looking right down the line, but it appears to me that our back stake is set at the 40 and a half yard line, meaning the front stake is at the other end there and short of the 30-yard line. There are times when we have no choice where we start a series in between a hard yard line. Whenever we can avoid it, we want to do that for a number of reasons. And we won't go through all of those, but just by example, for instance, if you're making a judgment whether a lineman is downfield, you don't want to have to do math. In your pre-snap routine, you need to know if you're a line of scrimmage person that the 3 yard belt is at the 42, not the 42 and a half. Okay. Same thing with passes being touched beyond the line. We don't want to have to do mass. So we want to try to, as much as possible, not only start series on yard lines, but we also want to snap from yard lines. Now, the closer we get to the line to gain, the more precise we need to be in terms of where we're going to spot the ball, because that 18 inches or whatever it happens to be can be the difference between making the line to gain and not making it. But in this situation, we're looking at a fourth down and about 8.5 yards, and we want to avoid that. Then this play is going to illustrate why that is a big deal. So Gregor, go ahead and run it all the way through. So we have a scrimmage kick formation, but the snap does not go back to the punter. Rather, we have a running play. Now, the question becomes, when is the runner down? And Gregor, if you'll slow this down a little bit and run it forward, you will see that the runner's knee may have been down prior to that point. If you go back a couple of clicks, if the knee is down there, he's short of the line to gain. All right. So we have a couple things going on. First of all, we have a critical forward progress spot if you're a line of scrimmage person. If this was a finals game, I'm certain that replay would stop this and try to check to see if they can determine whether that knee was down or not. This obviously was not from Ford Field. It was a semi, so the call on the field stood. But the point, hopefully, that you're picking up from this is that we need to make sure, whenever possible, we're starting series from a yard line rather than in between yard lines. And secondly, whenever possible, that we're snapping from a hard yard line until we get close to the line to gain. Okay. All right. This next clip also was from a semi. We'll run it through the first time just to give you an idea what's going on here. Now, I've saved this clip for tonight on purpose. I thought about using it a little earlier in our training program, but tonight seems like the appropriate night. All right, so let's go back to the origin of this. First of all, we've got a decision that we have to make in terms of forward backwards. So line of scrimmage people, you've got to work it out in terms of how you're going to handle that. Typically, the line judge is going to be primary on making decisions forward or backward all over the field. Now, that doesn't mean that the H won't have an opinion. It won't mean that the H might come in and overrule, but to make sure that we have a person that is looking at it in every situation, typically this goes to the line judge. This is tight. I believe it's forward. I believe from the point of the throw, which appears to be um, somewhere maybe 39 and a half, maybe as close as the 40. And if you look at where the receiver touches the ball, it's right at the 40. But this is no more than a yard forward, probably less than a yard. So we have to have a definitive opinion on this. We can't be uncertain whether this is forward or backward. We need to know for sure. Now, the next part becomes line of scrimmage official. What you have now is a running play. All right. So when this pass is secured and the runner cuts it up, which helps. But if the runner stays outside, that line of scrimmage official has got to drop into the offensive backfield. And for instance, right about now, when he secures possession, the line of scrimmage person should be moving back towards the rear stake. Why do we do that? So that we can see the runner and also potential blocking engagements that are going to occur at the point of attack. From this position, it's more difficult to look at those as opposed to if you're 4 yards or 5 yards deeper at this particular point. Okay. The other thing that I would say is once we have secured the ball, once the line of scrimmage person has determined that if this ball comes loose, it's going to be a fumble, get off of the runner. You can keep the runner in your peripheral, but we've got to get to point of attack. And you're going to look inside because you know your deep wing is going to have the outside person. Okay. So the block that the line of scrimmage person should be looking at is number 6, I believe, coming towards the 50-yard line. We know that the deep wing is going to be looking at that block out at the numbers. Right. Now that doesn't develop into anything, but it could have. All right, so now we go along. Now, one of the things that we all learned when we first started football was that you have to see leather. You don't put air in the whistle until you've seen leather. Here, there's no way that our line of scrimmage official at the top of the screen can see the ball. It's just not possible for him to look through those bodies to be able to know. We never assume, never, never, ever assume. So when he can't see the ball, he's going to come up to what he thinks is the forward progress spot soft and move in. And then we're looking for perhaps the umpire, perhaps the opposite short wing to have a whistle. And by the way, it's perfectly permissible on certain plays where we don't have a whistle at all. The whistle is an additional piece of information. It's a courtesy to the players to let them know that the ball is dead. The ball is dead by rule, not by whistle. Okay. So now the line of scrimmage guy goes, oh, shucks, or something close to that, because he realizes this ball has come out and now he doesn't know when the ball came out. All right. So he's going to come in and go, no, he's down. Well, there's no way that this line of scrimmage person can know whether he's down or not. This is where we have to have other people on the crew step up. All right. Umpire certainly knows here. Now, we don't have high definition, so I can't tell you unequivocally that this ball comes out before he's down. It certainly looks like it to me, that it's coming out right there. It's been ripped out and he's lost possession of the ball. I believe that when he hit the ground, the ball was already on its way out. Okay. Now, so to begin with, line judge should not make the ruling, should not blow the whistle, should be looking inside. And then, the umpire at that point might give the dead ball signal, might even put air in the whistle, and that would be how we would end the play. All right. But now, since we have the line of scrimmage official making that determination, the umpire needs to step up. All right. If this ball is out, like I believe that it is, and he knows it's out, he's got to come in and say, look, that's a fumble. Right. Now we've got two choices. If we reverse this into a fumble. Um, we can make it an inadvertent whistle, which by rule, if we make it an inadvertent whistle, the ball's going to end up right where it finished right there, because by rule, um, you go back to the end of the run, or team A has the opportunity to repeat the down. The other option that's a better option is that we have a clear and immediate recovery here. Now, I'm going to admit to you that by high school rules, there is no um, hard and fast rule that tells you you can make this judgment. But in the spirit and intent of getting plays right, this would be a time where the umpire could say, look, I've got a clear recovery and it's right at the time of your whistle. We're going to give this to the defense first down. All right. But we've got umpire certainly has a look at it. Opposite wing might have a look at it. Back judge maybe has a look at it. Even though we don't want the back judge ball watching, it may be because there's no action that's taking place by the people that he was supervising that he has a look at it. But you can see that Team A, the blue shirts, are pretty convinced that they no longer have the football. And I happen to agree that I don't think they do either. But we have to have a culture within our crews where we're going to provide information. And even if the information is not accepted, that the culture is that we welcome the opportunity for additional information to consider. And this is not only a referee responsibility, although he or she is primarily responsible for reinforcing the fact that we do want people to come in and provide information. Don't shame them. Don't criticize them. Tell them to go back to their position, because I can guarantee you they'll never do it again. And we may need it even worse later in a game or in the season. We want to have the culture as good job, Fred, Susie, whoever happens to be. Thank you for coming in. Thank you. No, we didn't choose to go that direction, but you did the right thing coming in. Okay. We've got to have that sort of culture within our crews if we're going to be successful and be everything that we can be. And you don't have to be the most senior person on the crew to come in and help. You might be the newest person on the crew, but if you have information, you got to bring it. Okay. There are a couple things for you to consider as you prepare for the coming season. All right, we will move forward. We did not have time last session for free kicks, so we're going to spend some time on free kicks right now. We'll see how far we get. The backup may be if we don't get as far along with and get through free kicks quickly enough, we may delay foul selection until next week, but we'll see how it plays out. All right, this is a straightaway kick down the field. All right, so let's run it through. There are two views. Let's look at it through the sideline view, coach's cut. So that's jumping around for me, Gregor. Maybe it's just on my end. That's a lot better. All right, so it goes down to about the 10-yard line, and we have the Titans who clash there, and we end up with a return that goes out of bounds at about the 33. All right, now here we go. This is the view I want you to look at. So in terms of what we're looking at, get ready to stop the video. Stop now. All right, run it back a few clicks. All right, it is critical, back judges and umpires, that you get in between the numbers and the hash. And depending on which way the play goes, um, your position may be somewhat flexible, but we need to get you inside the hash because we need you to officiate these blocking angles from inside out, because we have four looks at blocks from the outside in. All right, so if we start numbering from the left side of the screen, you can see that there are three Team A players that are coming down the field. Those belong to the deep wing on that side of the field. Now you can see that the first engagement that's going to occur is that it is just outside the hash mark. Right? So I believe coming in from the sideline on the left is the umpire. I'm not certain, but we would give him, and we're going to have some overlapping here, but he would be looking at the inside three people. So you would have Gregor, if you can point out the person right there closest to the center of the field. No, yeah, that player would belong to this official as this one would and the third one. All right. So there's going to be an overlap there where one guy is going to have potentially two officials looking at it. Same thing on the other side of the field. We want the deep wing to take the widest three people. And typically, the widest player, his sole responsibility is to make sure the play doesn't get to the sideline. Very rarely is he going to come down and actively engage, at least in the first round of blocking. So we can look primarily to the next two. And the same thing with either the umpire or the back judge. He's going to look at the inside three people. So we're going to have some overlaps there. It will be over here on the right side of the screen. So run it slow now, and you can see how these blocks develop. Now, I don't see a foul here. It's pretty much standard hat on hat. Um, really not any serious restriction. That block there near the hash, they got outside the frame, but he had good leverage. So there, I don't see a foul in that situation, but we need to have affirmation that we have clean blocks. All right. All right. Now, the other thing that I want to point out is in the dead ball work that we have, we've changed the mechanic on free kicks where we're no longer moving the deep wing off of the 50-yard line. The only movement that he's going to have on a regular basis will be to go deep if it appears that the return may go back for a score. So uh, the two deep wings, field judge and side judge, are going to remain stationary at the 50-yard line and read and react from that point. Now, this is with Jeremy's approval, Jeremy Valentine, because we have a problem with our deep wings penetrating too far down, losing sight of blocking angles, and then secondly, getting beat unnecessarily on plays that go further downfield. So we're going to have you hold your position and then read and react from there, which is really pretty similar to scrimmage plays. It's certainly more like scrimmage plays than having you penetrate downfield. All right. So our deep wing at the top gave ground, probably ended up just about where he should have stayed put because this runner goes out of bounds at about the 33-yard line. All right, now you can see our referee following. The referee is cleaning up from behind. He should not be looking at the runner going out of bounds. The players that we want him to look at are those opposite jersey colors that are closest to him. If someone's going to do something silly, it's going to be on the back side. Very rarely do you get that kind of nonsense that happens right at the point of attack. Okay, next clip. This also is going to illustrate our primary responsibilities. Now, here's a play. First of all, you got a double team block there so that the deep wing should be looking at that at the bottom of the screen from the 50-yard line. So run that back again. So the block, the double team block that's going to happen at the numbers belongs to the deep wing. Now, if that gets broken, if 22 is able to split these guys, all right, now you've got a standard blocking situation. Now, he briefly did that, but restriction is very, very limited. and we end up with a tackle being made right there. So we're okay with that as a no call. All right. But definitely something to look at. All right, let's go to the end zone view. So now you can follow the people if you're a back judge, the three you would be looking at least initially. If you're an umpire, same thing. The two deep wings should be looking at the people that they are seeing. So there's your double team. And then you've got a couple of blocks that happen near the hash, which are okay. Now, the other thing that I'd point out is a good read and react by the deep wing. And again, ironically, he ends up pretty much at the 50-yard line where he would have been if he just stayed put. But he is prepared if this return goes further than anticipated, that he's got a good chance. I don't like the back pedal particularly, but we're moving in the right direction. He does cross over and now run. Now, the umpire does not have end zone responsibility, does not have goal line responsibility. So he or she does not have to worry about maintaining a cushion. The back judge absolutely must do so. All right, next clip.
Hey Rich, can I ask a question on that one?
Please do.
So I just noticed something at the end of this clip. The runner, when he gets up, shoving kid's head down.
Yeah.
Deep wing back judge, you got anything on that?
That's probably good talk to. Now,
Yeah.
if you had other problems with that player during the game, or you have a particularly contentious game and you've had previous problems, maybe we dial that up as a foul. But based on this particular set of circumstances, I'd like someone just to go to that guy and just simply say, "Don't do that. I don't want you to do that again. If you make that bad decision again, you're probably going to be disappointed." Something to that effect. All you need to do is to acknowledge that you saw it.
Great. Thank you.
Yep, good question. See, 99 jumps up, no muss, no fuss. All right, here we go. Over near the sideline, pretty well limits the what's going to happen. And again, you can see our deep wing penetrated downfield, but was in the process of giving ground in the event that he broke free. He didn't assume that the runner was going to be tackled. Good job with shoulders parallel to the sideline. That's what we want to see when we're giving ground. All right. And by this year's mechanic, he would simply finish this play right where he started and then move up to assist with dead ball cleanup. Okay. Next clip. All right. This is more of a directional kick. Uh, it's going to the sideline. We're going to get a look here. We have lots of things that take place here. This is a late returning play, and the runner reverses his field, which of course is problematic for us because it changes blocking angles. Things that originally looked like they were straight on blocks now potentially become blocks in the back. Now, had the runner stayed outside, that's probably a hold by number one. But the fact that he cuts it up inside, the leverage certainly is there. The team A player is walled off, and that's not a foul that we want called. Okay. Now we had a player go out of bounds. So you'll notice over there on that far sideline, we have a team B player that goes into the team A bench. All right. Now the short wing certainly has a responsibility to the dead ball spot. Referees, if you see that player go into that position, maybe you angle over that way to help bring that player back to the field to ensure that we don't have something unfortunate happen over there that would have a negative effect on our game. All right, next clip. This is one of those kinds of plays that if you're not ready as a deep wing, um, you get surprised. And that's why it's really, really important that you keep your feet moving. You don't have your feet set in concrete. As this runner gets to, or you feel that the runner has gotten to about the 35, you should be thinking about giving ground, whether it's shuffling or going to opening the hip and going to a run. But you can see here that this is very close to going the distance. And if it does, we don't have this covered at the goal line. Now, the other thing that's important is we're going to wait for the short wing to come up and take progress. Now, if you're a deep wing and the guy is coming from a considerable distance, be prepared to give him a suggestion. You know, put it on the 32, put it on, in this particular case, it looks like it's somewhere around the 40. All right. You can, John, 40-yard line. All right. But don't come back. Your job, your job is to continue with your cushion and watch for players, watch for opponents. You can see that our deep wing really wants to come back and take that spot. All right, next clip. We see a lot of these kinds of kicks as a means by which to try to control kick returners. The point that I want to make here, watch the back judge at the bottom of the screen. Our deep wing does a good job staying right at the 50, but can you see the look that the back judge gets by taking that limited amount of space into the field? Essentially, the deep wing and the back judge have the same view of action. We have to get the back judge and the umpire into at least the numbers so that we get an inside out viewpoint. We don't have that here. You can see the umpire is coming, but the back judge has deemed, because this is going into his third of the field, that he's going to hang around the sideline. And he's of minimal value to us in that position. We have to get you at least inside the numbers. Okay, next clip. Now, the point that I want to make, if you go back to the beginning of the clip, back judges want you to come directly into the field, not angling away. All right. If anything, you're going to angle more towards the 50-yard line. All right. Here we're angling back towards the 35. All right. And would also like to see that pace just a little bit quicker so that we get in there, because this return develops before we're really in the primo position to judge what's going on inside. Okay. So a little quicker pace getting inside the numbers, but the other thing is should be angling straight in, or perhaps even like the umpire is, more towards the 45. Okay. Next clip. All right, that's a grounded kick. Now that's it's not an onside kick. It could, like we have preached for years, a free kick is a short kick until it's not. All right. The reason why this is dangerous is that if this hits one of the team B players, obviously we have a free ball, and the mayhem that goes with people trying to secure possession, right? But this is in effect a modified mid-range kick. So we have to be alert to that. And then we also, as this play develops, we see this guy beginning to break. And now we get going, which is fine, but we assume that he's going to get tackled or driven out of bounds. All right. We cannot assume that until he's down. We're assuming that he's going all the way back for a score and that the pylon is going to be threatened. The other thing I want to point out here is that our back judge is now outside of the numbers. All right. That back judge needs to stay because the return is coming at about, well, in between the numbers and the sideline. We really need that back judge to be more center of the field. So maybe at those NFL hash marks on this side of the field would be the place for him. Okay. Because we need that inside out viewpoint. Next clip. All right, here's one. It's a pop up. And this is really, really well executed. And if that ball flops the other way, we might have a different outcome. This is really a nice kick by this young man. All right, now deep wings, we want our short wings to take these spots whenever possible. So by our new mechanics, we're going to have you hold at the 50, and what you're looking for is potential KCI or interference with the opportunity or um, a number of other fouls that could occur. Uh, we want the short wing, even though it's going to be a hike for him or her, we want that person to come up and take it. And you can see here that our deep wing ends up coming downfield and taking this out of bounds spot. Now, the other thing is a determination needs to be made, probably by the deep wing here. Does this player touch the ball? In this particular case, he does not. He lets it go. So this is a free kick out of bounds, untouched by team B, and therefore a foul. All right. Now, that spot in this particular case probably is not that important. If it's closer to the 50-yard line, then yes, that spot would be important, but it would be a really, really good idea to have a general idea where this ball goes out of bounds. Looks to me like it's about the 30, 31-yard line. Okay. So we should have a flag here for a free kick out of bounds untouched. And our short wing, we should see him in the picture on his way to come up and take this spot. And again, you can help him with where that ball belongs. Put it on the 31. Okay. Next clip. All right. Here we're anticipating a short kick. All right. Hold it right now. So after the PAT and before the ready for play, the three officials on each sideline need to have their own little convention, your own little conference session. And what you're going to do is you're going to review your initial responsibilities. Obviously, umpire and back judge have the restraining line and have to know, particularly if it's a short kick, whether it's legal in terms of team A being onside. All right. Once that kick clears, okay, now he can begin helping with blocking, but not until we have determined the status of the restraining line. The line of scrimmage person in between is primarily responsible for touching and early blocking. And then the deep wing has two responsibilities, touching, but his primary responsibility or hers is the restraining line. Does this kick go the required 10 yards? Is it touched by a team B player before it gets 10? Is it touched by a team A player before it goes 10 untouched by B? And those sorts of things we want to review, and we want to encourage people to remain stationary and let the play develop and finish before we start closing down. It's very, very common for officials to get excited and we want to close down while the ball is still loose, which is dangerous to us, but it also cuts down on our ability to officiate. So we need to take the time in between the PAT and the ready for play to make sure that we go through those basic responsibilities. Okay, let this run. Now, in this particular case, Team A elects not to short kick. All right, they kick it deep. Now, when that happens, the deep wings, which are lined up at the 50, when you see it's a deep kick, all right, now you need to turn and go. You need to get some depth to assist the referee with working the return. The line of scrimmage person that is at the 45, your responsibility is to pick up the duties of what would typically be the deep wings, right? So you're going to look at the outside three. Back judges' responsibilities don't change. Okay. Now, in this case, it's easy. We get a touchback, no muss, no fuss. Doesn't always work out that way. All right, next kick. All right, now let's go back to the beginning of that play, Gregor, where they're in a huddle. Okay. Now we have kicking teams that want to play that little game where they huddle up and then they run up there like they're going to do the short kick and then they stop short. Okay, as long as they don't violate the restraining line, they're legal. But if they're going to play that Mickey Mouse stuff, if you get somebody that you can document has gone across that restraining line, a foot down beyond that line, foul that action, make that encroachment. Don't let them get away with that. All right. Now, all right, the rest of the play. Um, it turns out that we got a pretty simple return or a pretty simple recovery by Team A. Um, think about what else could have happened here. See, it bobbled around in there a little bit. He didn't get it the first time. So what we need to have is we need to have some time go off the clock. Now, if we don't wind the clock and immediately stop the clock, or the clock operator does not turn it on, turn it off, at the end of the play, we can always make a clock adjustment. But the other part of this we need to keep in mind is this has the potential to be targeting. It has the potential to be a late hit. There are a number of things that can happen here. You don't get a free shot just because you're trying to execute a short kick. We're still going to hold them to a safety standard, and foul action deserves to be fouled. Now, let's say that this player is targeted and Team A ends up recovering this ball. Well, we know that Team A is not going to retain possession of the ball, but we're going to enforce that from the previous spot and re-kick the free kick. We're going to repeat the free kick. All right. And we may have to explain that to our sidelines and to our coaches. All right. All right. Next clip.
Hey, Rich, I had a quick question from the last clip. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So, because it happened with me last year, when the kicking team is huddled and the kicker is kind of set up, he stays outside of the huddle, but they stay in the huddle. Are they allowed to kick the ball from a huddle, or they have to break? And then does there need to be a certain number of players on each side if they stay in the huddle?
Well, I would hope, that's a good question because if the kicker comes from outside of the huddle, like at an angle, then it may be, well, depending where the huddle is, they may not
Like if the huddle,
have.
if I recall from last year, I believe the huddle was they huddled 5 yards behind the ball. So they were 5 yards behind the ball, and then the kicker went before everybody went down the field, and then they kind of broke from the huddle and went from that. And I believe there was a flag down on it. So I just couldn't remember from that exactly um the outcome from it.
Well, if
So
the huddle is directly in front of where the ball is going to be kicked, then you've definitely got a great shot at having at least four players on both sides of the kicker. Okay. But let's say the ball is teed up at a hash mark and they huddle on the opposite hash mark. And now the kicker comes up and kicks the ball. You got an illegal procedure or illegal formation foul on team A because they didn't have four players on both sides of the kicker. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm gonna go back and try and find it again from last year. Maybe I'll send it to you guys. Maybe it might be one
Okay,
to go back and review for you or for the group.
good. Let's do it. Let's
Okay,
do it.
thank you.
You're welcome. And by the way, while we're talking about things, I sent you the PowerPoint on free kicks. We've not spent any time on it because we're a little short on time tonight. But if that generates questions, don't hesitate to contact me and we'll deal with them either individually or bring it up as a part of our session next time.
Hey, Rich, I got a hypothetical question for you from Adam here. Um, if an onside kick is recovered by R and is returned toward the end zone, who should be covering the goal line?
Okay, so we, regardless of the depth of the kick, we're still going towards the goal line, correct?
Well, yeah, I think it's just if a short kick is instead of just somebody falls on it, like we see in this clip here, they pick it up and they book it towards the end zone. Who's got the goal line in that situation?
The back judge, and if possible, the deep wings. And that has happened where someone has attempted a short kick and a player's come up and fielded the ball on the run and just, lickety split right down the field. And in a situation like that, we may not get someone to the goal line just because they're younger and faster than we are and they got a head start. But theoretically, yes, the back judge should be at the goal line, and if possible, we should have at least one of our deep wings there. Good question.
Thank you.
Next clip. This is clip 90. So we're not expecting an onside kick. Now, what does the beanbag mean? How do we use a beanbag in a free kick situation? First of all, if you are a deep wing, I would recommend that you have your beanbag in your hand to begin every kick, every free kick. All right. From the standpoint of early touching. All right. So there are two reasons potentially for a beanbag in this situation. One would be if team A touches the ball before they're eligible, because then we have an illegal touching, which we may need to reference later on. The other reason for dropping a beanbag would be that we have secured the kick, and now we have a running play, and the kick returner has fumbled. Here, the beanbag was used to signal that Team B had touched the ball. The signal, how we're going to signal that, is to wind the game clock. All right. We don't drop a beanbag because that could be confusing. We're winding the clock to indicate we have a legal touch on the field, and then we're stopping the clock when we have firm control of the recovery. All right. We get the play right, but mechanically we don't do it correctly. All right, next clip. All right, we have quite a convergence here at the spot. And, again, I understand that we get excited and we've got a pile. Let's just make sure that we've got a recovery before A, we put whistle in or air in the whistle. And secondly, we get too committed to coming up. Balls have been known to be loose for several seconds and not necessarily within the visual plane of someone. So a slow whistle is a good whistle. That's the whole purpose for that clip. All right, I believe this is the last one, 142. All right, pretty easy, clear cut. The point that I want to make here, look at our officials at the top of the screen. See, we're already starting to move, and that ball is still loose. All right. And on the positive side, we do get a wind because it was legally touched and it was not um, cleanly recovered by a down player. He was up, so we're going to take a second off of the clock. And again, even if the stadium clock operator doesn't do it, you should know what time we free kick that ball, and then just simply have the referee make an announcement that the ball was legally touched on the field. By rule, the clock should have started. Please adjust the game clock to whatever it is, 12 seconds, whatever it happens to be. Okay. The point that I want to make, and Gregor, if you'll bring me up here for just a minute, um, on whether we're talking about scrimmage plays or punts or free kicks, mechanics are prescribed to put us individually into positions to officiate the play as expediently and as accurately as we possibly can. The other part of the mechanics, though, is that we have to perform our job correctly because our back judge or our short wing or whatever the dyad or the triad happens to be is counting on the fact that we're going to be doing our job so that they are free to do their job. That's why we have to have a well-oiled machine in terms of how we're handling things mechanically. That's the big deal about mechanics. The old adage that hopefully we're getting rid of is we don't worry about mechanics, we worry about getting plays correct. Well, that sounds good in practice, but the reality of it is, and you've heard me say this, when we don't perform mechanics correctly, our accuracy goes way, way down. Whether it's sideline catches, whether it's decisions at the pylon, um, whatever it might happen to be, our best shot at getting plays correctly is by performing the mechanics in the prescribed manner. Okay. So don't overlook that PowerPoint. I would ask you to go back and review it again, read it over maybe for the umpteenth time, but try to do it with fresh eyes and go, okay, that's the reason for that is that this official is counting on me to do this particular function. All right, let's go ahead and get started with some file selection situations. I don't know that we're going to get all the way through this tonight, but we can get started. While we're doing that, let me just mention that people like myself that review video and do video assessments and perform feedback to our people got an email from Brian just a day or so ago and going through what the expectations are. And one of the points that he made, and as I recall, it was in capital letters, and that is when you're looking at plays, um, evaluate fouls very, very judiciously. And his point was we need to reinforce that we have to get rid of those marginal fouls. Well, you've been hearing me say for years, and probably there are some people that say, oh my God, he's going to talk about foul selection again this year. Yeah, I am, because it continues to be a big deal. And as I've said before, it's a big deal at the NFL level. It's a big deal, major college football, small college football, and high school football, or interscholastic football to include our lower levels. We've got to look at plays from the standpoint of advantage, disadvantage. All right, we're going to start with some potential holding plays. This first clip is going to have 3 potential fouls. So if we go back to, let's run it through the first time. All right, so hopefully you picked up the 3 potential fouls. We've got 1 flag down. The first one was right there at the right guard, right tackle position, and our referee should be looking at that We're going to have an end zone view. The second block is right at the hash mark by number 1, and that's the one that draws the foul. And then the third block is down here at the bottom of the screen, which we can't see right there. All right. So now let's go to the end zone view. All right, let's look at this first from the referee's perspective, and that's going to be right there with the right tackle. Well, I guess it's the right guard. All right, it's right at the point of attack. He's got him by the arm, basically executes a wrestling two-hand takedown. Um, this is a foul that we've got to get. That's at point of attack. Now, I appreciate a high standard by our referee, and this is still very, well, let's see, this is probably midway in the second quarter. All right. This is a foul. This is grab and restrict at the point of attack. So this would be a missed no call. All right. So now the block that occurs out at about the hash mark that's executed here, you can see that the blocker has lost leverage. And now that be his right arm is out there in front, and he hooks this guy, restricts him. You can see he's trying to fight off of that block. That is a correct call for grab and restrict. Okay. Flag is down. Our enforcement spot hopefully recognizing this. By now, the third block is going to be the one out on the edge. And this would be by our deep wing. So let it go a little bit further. All right. Now, right now, that's a side block. There may be some restriction. The block or the push in the back is not in and of itself a problem because contact was maintained. However, if this runner had continued to the outside, he couldn't because of the pursuit. But if he takes this closer to the sideline, now we're going to look at that engagement by the defensive back and the blocker through a different lens. All right. This might be a foul if this runner takes it outside. So this is a correct judgment, a correct no call on the part of the deep wing passing on that foul. All right. Next clip. We got about 5 minutes here, and then we're going to have a wrap. So we're not going to be able to get through everything. In this particular play, we've got a block by the tight end, number 18. And here's an example. And if you go back to the foul selection, I talk about that we have to put everything within a category, and you don't throw a flag just because it looks bad. Now you're looking at that and you're going, he's got a fistful of jersey. And he does, but his leverage is good. But you can see that even though he's got a fistful of jersey, because of the leverage, this defensive player is not able to get outside. He is not disadvantaged by this. All right. Again, somebody's going to say, didn't you see he had a hold of his jersey? Coach, he had good leverage. That did not have anything to do with that player's ability to play football. All right, let's look at the end zone view. All right, so we're looking at 18 right out there. You can see excellent, excellent leverage, and he lets him go when he loses the leverage. Again, not a pristine block, but by philosophy, by maintaining leverage, that's a situation that we do not want called holding. All right, next clip.
What about his hand? What about his left hand in the center of the jersey? Looks like he's got a fistful of jersey and there's restraining there.
Okay, but
Or
like I'm
restricting.
saying, he maintains leverage. In fact, it may be that the defensive player has hands to the face here. See him with that head pinned back, but he's not holding that guy off from making a play. He's got to show us more than that to earn a holding foul.
Okay, thank you.
If leverage is maintained, we don't have to be fussy in terms of what happens inside, right? If leverage is lost, this is probably a foul. All right. This should be clip 83. All right, now the block we're looking at is right there at the middle of the field. We got a flag down on that. Now, the one that's an obvious foul. That's a grab and restrict. Keep in mind, back judges or anyone after calling a foul, we have to finish plays. All right. He gets excited here. He's got a flag down. It's a correct call. But see, now we're going to run and we're going to report to the referee. We still have players that are in close proximity to each other. There's no hurry to get to your referee. And if you have the benefit of 0-2-0, you've got additional consideration in terms of time. All right. Now, the block I want you to look at is at the bottom of the screen by the deep or by the wide receiver that the deep wing is going to look at. It's right there, number 7. Now, that may have been a foul if that running back had cut the ball back inside. But here you can see that the wide receiver has him pretty well walled off. And again, not a pristine block, but leverage is pretty good. That is not action that we want to have called as a foul. Okay, last one, and we will pick up where we left off next week. All right, this should be 136. Action is going to be at the bottom of the screen. And again, it's number 5. Now, number 5's got him pretty well wrapped up. Now, if that play goes to the outside, there's a good chance that this is a flag for holding. But when the runner cuts back inside, again, number 5 has him walled off. There's no way, whether he's being restricted or not, that he can participate in that play. So that is another example of something that we want to pass on. All right. I've got some DPI and OPI plays that we're going to look at when we get to our session next week. We will wrap up on foul selection, and then we'll do some potpourri, including swinging gate and some things that you need to be thinking about when we go to some early season games. I'm aware of several games where we're crossing conferences. For instance, Celine is going to play at Rockford. That will be a knockdown, drag them out. Should be a great football game. So we have a number of those kinds of games, but regardless of whether you've got one of those high profile games or not, we have to be ready for tricks of the trade that maybe they've been working on during summer camp that they're going to pull out, whether it's a double reverse pass or the swinging gate on a PAT. So we'll try to talk about some of those trick plays and get you thinking about how not to be surprised when a team pulls one of those out of the bag. All right. Appreciate everyone's attention tonight on the call. We have one more week to go before we kick it off. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for the season ahead. So again, thank you for joining us tonight. And we will see you next week. Hydrate, 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 hydrate. Get ready for next week in your games.